my first career as an adult, before I became a therapist and a clinical social worker, I was a porn star, right? And around like 25, I started to have a desire to leave the adult business, right? Like it was like, this can't be forever, right? Like I clearly have a shelf life here. I'm also like behaving in ways that do not promote a healthy life, right? Like, and I'm behaving in those ways in order to continue participating in porn, right? Like it's so much easier to do porn if you're really, really stoned.
Welcome to Mirror Talk Some Conversations. Today, we explore how digital overuse impacts our mental health and relationships. Our guest, Jennie, is a licensed clinical social worker, anxiety specialist, and the author of Look Up, the 30-day path to digital minimalism and real-life maximalism. She is the founder of West Coast Anxiety Clinic and has lectured at Harvard. She has appeared on numerous talk shows, radio shows, and podcasts, ranging from Oprah to The View to Loveline to Headline News. Jennie will share insights on managing digital consumption and reclaiming real-world connections. Welcome to the show, Jennie. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. It's a big delight to have you on this episode to talk about some matters that, really affect a lot of us, like, talking about anxiety and the use of the social media, digital use all in general is something that gets the best of us most of the time. But before we go into everything that you do and how we could benefit from that, you agreed before we start recording to answer our wildcard questions. We'll be going on 3 levels. It's just a means for us to get to know you in a fun way. So are you ready? Are you ready for the wildcard questions?
I'm ready. I feel a little bit like it's like when I go to my ramen joint and they're like, do you want 1-star spicy, 2-star spicy, or 3-star spicy? And I am inclined to always go 3-star spicy. So, let's go. Let's see what happens. Bring it on.
That's awesome. I love that. So I'm going to pick the first card randomly. It's the icebreaker. And I don't know what is there. Okay. The question is, who do you love most in life? That's
What or who? Who? Oh,
I think that's more of like a confessions question, not an icebreaker. That's a lot.
No, I like it. I like it. This is actually a question that my daughter, my 7-year-old, asks me, and she usually frames it in terms of like, what do you love most in life? And I asked her about it. I said, what, are you saying who or are you saying what? Which is why I asked you as well. And she says, no, mommy, if I say who, then you have to choose between me, daddy, and Sadie. And I don't want you to have to do that. Which, what an insightful thing for a little human to say. Who do I love more than anyone in the world? I want to say it's a tie between the 3 of them, but I think my husband actually ekes it out over the others. He is the one that I created them with. He's also like parts of them, and I see so much of him in them. And so I love that. And he's the one that I want to see this whole life adventure out with. And so I think he is number 1. And then the girls come in at a close tied second. So
that's a very good answer, because I believe once the girls leave the house, at whatever age, 18, you'll be left with him, basically.
It's him. Yeah, it's him. It was him to start, and then the game plan is that it'll be him in the end, too.
Yes. I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for the answer.
We're working on it.
So are you ready for the next question? For the next level?
Go. Yeah, let's go. I love it.
This is confessions. Oh, okay. It says, what is the most embarrassing memory you have? Oh.
Gosh, there is one like deeply embarrassing moment from my elementary school years that always sticks out with me. And it's, I don't know, like I feel this pull to minimize it. Like, it wasn't really that, like nothing, it wasn't really that big a deal. But at the time it was just, I was so humiliated. So I was in 4th grade, Miss Hasagawa's class. And I was reading out loud and I couldn't sound out the word large. And I kept saying largy over, like I said it like 3 or 4 times, largy. And my daughter's learning to read right now. She's in first grade. And I think about it in that framework of like, and that's sort of me minimizing it, right? Or like maybe just infusing a little bit of like self-compassion into my reflection on that moment. Like kids make mistakes. We're figuring out how to read. But I had, at that time, I had this really clear idea about what I should be able to read. And the word large was totally within my skill set, like my reading skill set. Like it was a word that like a sight word that I knew, that I had memorized. And for whatever reason, it just left my mind. That moment has stuck with me in such a curious way. And that was probably actually one of the first like blips of my perfectionism, right? Like don't make mistakes in front of people. And so, yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. I even noticed like my chest like flushes just thinking of it. I'm like, oh God, largy. Like what is largy? Largy is not a word, Jennie, but like, I don't know. 4th grade Jennie was just doing the best she could.
When 2025-year-old, as a 25-year-old, 2025 Toby still makes such mistakes sometimes, and I feel so stupid about myself sometimes.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And like the best we can do is like reflect on that moment and just sort of like hold it gently and recognize like, oh, we were just really doing the best we could in that moment with what we had. And in that moment, what I did not have was the pronunciation of the word large. Yeah. It was a really clear distinguishing moment where I was like, people will snicker at you if you make mistakes in public. Yeah, it was a lesson. Yeah.
For me, Anisha, sorry, just to add to that.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I always feel embarrassed when people laugh at me when I make mistakes. But then right now, I'm always like, okay, it was an opportunity or a privilege to make them laugh, basically. So it's fine.
Love
Let them
that
laugh.
reframe. That's so helpful. Let them laugh.
Let them laugh. Yeah. I made them happy today. I made them laugh for today. That's fine.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really helpful reframe.
Yeah, or else I'll feel very bad about myself and I'll feel like, oh my God, why am I laughing stock and why am I this? And that's it.
Yeah.
So last question. Are you ready? I just picked the card randomly.
Okay.
It says, are you holding onto something you need to let go of?
Toby. Yes. Of course I am.
Let me hear about it.
Of course. Holding on is one of my greatest skills. I'm so good at it. Yeah, I mean, I still hold on to the belief that I shouldn't make mistakes. It is this rigid philosophy that has not served me well in my life. And it has informed so many of the decisions that I've made in my life, right? Like when I was young, my mom said to me, and this sticks out too, she said, Jennifer, don't lie. But if you're going to lie, see it through. And it's like, yep. Okay. Like, but there was this like, really clear message in there that is like hold on to it. If you're good, like if you're going to try and pull it off, hold on to it. And I think that I've held on to a lot of things as a result of holding on to that belief that like you can't make a mistake. And if you think you made a mistake, keep going until it isn't a mistake. Right. And I think that this showed up. So my first career as an adult, before I became a therapist and a clinical social worker, I was a porn star, right? And around like 25, I started to have a desire to leave the adult business, right? Like it was like, this can't be forever, right? Like I clearly have a shelf life here. I'm also like behaving in ways that do not promote a healthy life, right? Like, and I'm behaving in those ways in order to continue participating in porn, right? Like it's so much easier to do porn if you're really, really stoned. Like it's just easier. And it's easier to like go to a porn party if you're drinking Red Bull vodka, right? Like there are just some things that make it easier to do porn. And and so like I held on to this belief that like, well, I made this decision to do porn. I've got to see it through. This is the decision that I made. And whether or not it was a mistake, I wasn't even willing to consider it because I was like, well, it just can't be because I can't make mistakes and I can't go back on things. And it's only forward. Forward is the only way. And it's only forward in one direction, right? There's this sort of like inflexibility and rigidity there. Yeah. So I think I try to be more flexible with it, and I try to make mistakes. I don't try to make mistakes, but what I try to do is to allow myself to be kind to myself when I make mistakes. Right. Like which makes it easier to make mistakes. Like if I'm not beating myself up every time I make a mistake, then making a mistake becomes less painful. It just becomes this, like, the size of the pain of the mistake is just the size of the mistake, instead of size of the mistake plus the pain that I inflict on myself for making a mistake. So, I think I can loosen my grip a little bit on that, on this idea that one is not supposed to make mistakes because, like, other people are allowed to make mistakes. This rule only applies to me. So I think I could probably loosen my grip a little bit on that idea. And I am, but golly, if it doesn't have some claw marks in it,
Yeah. Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, I can also relate to that in terms of, making mistakes and judging yourself too much for it, not being kind to yourself. Or if your best friend makes the same mistake, you're like, oh, you're just human. Nobody's perfect. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah. But like you said already, like, oh, I understand. We all make mistakes, and our future or our present day, is built upon the lessons that we've learned from the past mistakes. Improve ourselves is how we go on our personal growth, our personal development also. Yeah. Yeah, and what you shared actually led into my actual question that I wanted to ask you before the wildcard questions. And that's basically, I mean, you've already mentioned it already, like, how you change career paths and all of that. I'd like to know, what was your motivation? Like, what made you leave porn to become a social worker, to become a therapist? How did that go?
Yeah, it's such an important question, right? Like, what is the thing that made me get up and go? I think my get up and go, my go, was, I think it was recognition. It's not understanding. I think there was some like run away involved in that, right? Like, I think it was a combination of go towards something and run away from something. I think that I was trying to go toward a version of me that I felt really proud of, and that was actually making intimate connections with people, and not just like being physically intimate with people, which sort of hollows after time. So I think I was really going toward intimacy and connection. And I think that's largely what drew me to this work, to doing therapy, is it is a platform for intimate connection that is structured and safeguarded, and that allows people, to, myself included, to continue to evolve and become who they will be, and to really like sink into that shared suffering of human nature, right? Like you were saying, like our best friends make mistakes, right? Like, and we can forgive them. And so there's, like, my clients make mistakes and I can forgive them. And it was always reflecting back to me that, like, these are things that I can do as well for me. And so there's this, I think when I left porn, it was really about getting away from that hollowness and that, like, just that absence of meaning in my life, and going toward like that intimate connection. And it was largely born out of the work that I did with therapists and coaches, right? Like, I had worked with this woman, Jill, who was a brilliant relationship therapist, right? And I needed a lot of work in that department. And then I worked with Dr. Reef, who was a psychiatrist. I wasn't seeing him for meds. It was more like coaching, and like, but he still is. I think he's a career coach now, still a physician, and he was so skilled at helping me start to refine, like, what does it mean to become somebody? Like, what is the driving force behind some of my decisions? Like, what am I actually going toward? And then Jill really offered the opportunity to, like, she modeled how to have a healthy, intimate relationship with a woman that was like boundaried and like safe, which was not, I didn't have a lot of experience with that in my family of origin. And so, yeah, so I think, when I ended up on the rehab, I did a rehab show, and there was this like pattern recognition that happened in starting to do therapy. It's like, I had an opportunity to look back at my life and see the ways in which my decision making and my behavior was this sort of like giant pattern that resulted in where I was today at that time, and how like I found myself in this blank space where I could choose something different. And yeah, and Jill and Reef and even the people in the rehab helped me see that like the choice that was actually important to me was like connection and intimacy, and I just wasn't getting that in porn.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing that. For me, when you were speaking right now, I was like, just like, oh, at some point in your life, love was calling you, or you were reaching out for love, like real love, and you know, love for something real, like I'm like having a real partner. I say real partner. Just forgive my choice of words. Having a partner who you can come home to every day, for example. I have a love for a family, for as a certain family, and I think that also for me, from reading about you a little bit, led you to become a social worker, to love for people out there, also led you to become a therapist, love for helping people, also to have a better life, also to help them reduce their digital use, to help them connect more with real life. I believe, yeah, that's also wonderful. But when you also speaking, I was asking myself, like, living porn, for example, is something great. In my opinion, it could be most of us that we don't work in porn. We have addictions also. And sometimes we get, I mean, for me, I can imagine that working in porn could be very enticing, because you get to meet with other people and have fun. And then these addictions too are the same way too. Like, they're not so healthy, but then you enjoy them. They help you to numb yourself a little bit or just pass the time. So when you decide to leave all of those things that seems to be tantalizing and sweet and wonderful, and you decide to chase something, to go pursue something real, something deeper, basically, sometimes you could have the temptation to go back, because it's quick, it's easy, you're used to it. What do you do to prevent yourself from going back? What do you do to prevent relapse?
It's such a great question. From a clinical standpoint, addiction is really a tricky thing, right? We talk about behavior being under either aversive control or appetitive control. Aversive control meaning I want to get away from this thing that I don't want, right? So like I am worried about becoming financially destitute. And so I have a healthy savings plan, and I invest a lot in the market, and I have a 401k, right? Like that's sort of like a really useful and helpful behavior in response to that fear, right? But it is under aversive control. That same behavior, I invest in the market and I have a healthy savings plan, might be under appetitive control. Right now, I have this like elaborate savings plan because I'm planning this surprise 40th birthday party for my husband. He knows it's happening, but like it's this like surprise golf extravaganza trip, right? And so like I'm saving for this thing that I really, really want for him. And so the saving behavior is actually under appetitive control because it's like, oh, it's so like I really want it. I'm going towards something. It's really, really beautiful. Addiction is tricky because initially, like that, like you were saying, like that, oh, it feels good. We enjoy it, right? Like that's under appetitive control. And then at some point it becomes under aversive control. I'm trying to avoid like the come down, basically, right? Like, or I'm trying to avoid what I feel when I don't have it. Like if I don't have access to my phone, like, oh, I feel kind of like, oh, what's going to happen, right? So like I want my phone near me, right? And so behaviorally speaking, a really great preventative measure for relapse is to have clear values and to know why it is that you're trying to refrain from the behavior in the first place, right? So in the example of savings, I am refraining. I really want a new vanity for our bathroom downstairs. I really want it, right? But this vanity, it's pricey. It's like $1,200 for the vanity that I want. And that's not to mention the other work that you have to do to the bathroom to make the vanity like live there when you take out the old vanity, right? So it's not just, but more than that, like what I actually value more than just having a new vanity in our bathroom is giving a gift to my husband, like showing him that I love him and like making this really beautiful, magical experience for him. Like keeping my eye on that makes it easier to say no to buying the vanity right now. And it's the same way with addiction, right? And so I just celebrated 13 years sober. And what keeps me sober is seeing my family every day, right? Is getting to spend time with my partner, with my husband, and really being able to be present with that. And that shows up at like a varying degree of levels, right? Where my dad died about 7 years ago. And I went through that whole experience sober. And there is a version of me that would have been trying to get away from those feelings, right? From that sadness, from that grief. And I likely would have used, in order to do that, I would have smoked weed, I would have drank, probably would have done cocaine, because if you give a moose a muffin, right, like she's probably going to want to line a blow. And what I did instead was I focused on the thing that I wanted, which was to be present with my dad in these final moments of his life, right? And being able to really like lock in to my values and to the North Stars in my sky, to the thing that like would get me up to go, that helped me stay sober. And it helps me stay sober for like a long period of time, because every day that I do it, it's rewarding, right? Like our values are intrinsic, rewarding little bites that our brain gets. And so it reinforces us doing these things. Every day that I'm sober and every day that I spend time with my family as a sober woman and mom and parent reinforces me doing it again, because it's so meaningful to me. So I think there's one part of like, if you have addiction and you're trying to change a behavior, you're probably not going to get a lot of traction before you know like why you want to change this behavior. Like, what is this getting in the way of? There's another relapse prevention, like two other relapse prevention things that I think are really worth noting. One is like tolerance of uncertainty, right? They're like, I really don't know if I'm ever going to drink again or use cocaine or smoke weed. There is a low probability, but probability and possibility are different things, right? And my mind really wants possibility extinguished. It wants to know that I'm never going to do it again, or it wants to know when I'm going to do it again, right? And so as long as I can tolerate not knowing, like, yeah, I might one day, I actually can continue not using, because the only way to know with certainty when you're going to use again is to use again, right? So I think there's tolerance of uncertainty that will promote long-term sobriety in a way that like needing to know will crush it. I think the last part that is really important in relapse prevention, and this actually comes out of all of this comes out of the science of relapse prevention, but this comes very specifically out of an 8-week evidence-based program called mindfulness-based relapse prevention, is learning how to surf these urges that we feel to use, because they show up, right? You're going to be triggered. You're going to want to reach for something. You're going to want to avoid something. And as long as you can really learn how to surf that, the like pull to use, you don't actually have to use, right? But if you try to fight that urge, or if you try to avoid that urge, or if you like get like swept up in that urge, then there's a good chance that you're going to use again. So really learning how to tolerate some of the discomfort that's happening inside you, whether it's uncertainty, whether it's urges, and having a really clear vision for why it is that you're making these choices, that those are going to be things that help you with not using again.
Oh, that's so deep, Jennie. Thank you so much for sharing that. And congratulations on 13 years of soberness. I mean, that's huge. I'm clapping for you right here. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm so sorry that, for the loss of your father 7 years ago, but I also feel very proud of you. At that dark moment of your life, for me, I would confess, that would be like an excuse for me to, slip back into my old ways and, feel a victim of this world. I feel like a victim of this world and say, yeah, everything I've done up to this moment has not been good, and now I need to, slip back. But you pulled through. You remembered your why, which is something I believe is very important. I'm taking on with me from this conversation. Like, even when my brain is asking me, when are you going to do this again? I'm like, I remind myself of my why I am doing this, why I'm being sober, why I'm avoiding this addiction. And even when the urges come, which could be very devilish, not devilish, but I would say very tempting and very, very strong, very powerful. Yeah. Exactly. That's the word. Thank you. Yeah. Very powerful. It's going to overwhelm you sometimes. If you don't remind yourself of the why, in seconds, you just notice you're back to your old ways.
Yeah, you get pummeled by the wave, but you can learn to surf, and knowing your why can be a surfboard.
Yes. Know your why could be your surfboard. Wow, and that's so deep. You should write that in your next book.
Hey.
Yeah. Give us credit. Say Mirror Talk Conversations.
Yeah. Sure. Inspired by Toby.
Inspired by Toby, exactly. So I like us to move towards talking about your book. But before we talk about it, I mean, I'd like you to tell us about digital overuse and how it impacts our mental health and our interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, I think we know intuitively that our digital use has become problematic. I think as a society we've reached full saturation in terms of access to digital use. We know a lot of the data around who digital use impacts disproportionately, which like people of color, people from lower socioeconomic status. And by and large, we know that there are indicators of like problematic use or addictive behaviors when it comes to digital behavior. And there's dependency, right? Like, which are different things. Dependency would be my smartphone is the only thing that I have to access the internet. And then addiction is going to be like, I feel itchy and afraid when I don't have my phone with me. And like, I always have to have it with me and it's in the bathroom with me. And, it goes everywhere. And I don't know what's going to happen if I don't have it with me. So, I think that as a society, we've started to have a lot of conversations about what our digital use has become. And I think a lot of these conversations are being couched in the behavior that we see with our kids, right? And some of this is born out of Jonathan Haid's recent book, Anxious Generation, right? Like, which talks about our kids and the impact that smartphones have on our kids. But we've been studying smartphone use and like digital overuse for a long time. And we know that it's not just impacting kids, right? We know that it is correlated with higher rates of depression. It is correlated with higher rates of obesity. We know that it is correlated with higher rates of loneliness, with suicidal ideation. And this is broadly speaking, right? Like as a woman, we also know that, and I think really like even beyond the like gender dynamic, I think we know very specifically that social media use and the use of filters and stuff like that can cause some pretty dysphoric beliefs about ourselves and contribute to and exacerbate body dysmorphia and like self-loathing in ways that were just sort of unheard of before, right? Like you had to come across a Vogue magazine to really make a good comparison about yourself and Kate Moss, right?
Yeah.
But like now it's literally at my fingertips. All I have to do is log in and see some girl who's on a filter or some body who's been filtered. And it's hard for me to distinguish whether or not they've been filtered or whether or not that's just like the way that they live. Like, do they just have main character energy and like are super fit all the time? Because that's amazing, right? Like clearly I am not doing well. So I think I could jump into the stats. I don't think it's particularly helpful because I think we all know it, right? Like I think we feel it. I think we know it. We know that we're distracted. We know that when you get a phantom buzz, suddenly this connection that we have here is split and our attention goes somewhere else, right? And that moment, that like thing that's so tasty just sort of like gets lost. And so, yeah, like I think in the same way that if you are questioning your alcohol use, if you're like, oh, am I drinking too much? It's probably a good sign you're drinking too much. If you're like, am I on my phone too much? Probably a good sign that you're on your phone too much, right?
Yeah, that's very real. And I think nowadays also a lot of us are always on our smartphones because we do almost everything from it. And like you said earlier, there's that dependency, but also that dependency, in my opinion, the dependency sometimes leads to the overuse of it and the addiction to it also.
Absolutely.
At some point,
It's
I would like to
designed.
say, yeah.
Right? Like it is designed to pull you in and it's designed to make you use it more in the same way that alcohol or substances lights up your reward system and suddenly you find yourself inclined to use it more. But unlike alcohol, like you don't need alcohol to do your emails. You do need it by and large to
sometimes
because it's on your phone, right?
Yeah.
You need it to communicate.
Yeah. That's true. And that's why I'm so excited to talk about your book also, because in your book, you introduce this concept of psychological flexibility and how it guides our behaviors. So I'm like, oh, that would be interesting to know. Like, can you explain this to me? What it means to have this psychological flexibility and how we could use it, for our digital habits also?
Yeah. So psychological flexibility comes out of an evidence-based practice called acceptance and commitment therapy. We call it ACT in the therapy world. And it was a therapy that was started by Kelly Wilson and Steve Hayes out of University of Nevada. And it's rooted in behavioral psychology, right? So it's all operant conditioning and learning theory, right? Operant learning theory. And so what psychological flexibility is really speaking to is the fact that we've identified these 6 behavioral processes that can become really rigid. And when they become rigid, we suffer more mental illnesses, basically, like at its fundamental level. The more rigid that we are, the more psychological unwellness we experience. And so I'll talk about a few of the 6 just to be brief. So one process, and I think this is a really common thing that we talk about in like pop psychology world right now, is mindfulness, right? So when we have the ability to be present and aware, there's flexibility there, because no matter what comes up, we can be present and aware of it. If it's uncomfortable, I can be here for that. If it's joyful, I can be here for that. But when we find ourselves rigidly attending to a time that is not that now, right? So when we rigidly attend to the past, right? Like, oh, your mind is always there. It's like, why did I do that? Oh, why did that happen? I'm like, oh gosh, like, and we're just sort of doing this like mental review of our life. It's usually not colored very kindly, but there's rigidity there, right? Or if we're always attending to the future, like what's going to happen? Is this? Like, oh God, right? There's the spreading there, and there's rigidity there, right? So it's a flexible thing to be able to attend to the present, no matter what's happening in it, and to be able to look forward and look back, right? So you just sort of like imagine that your head is on this like pivot point, and you can look forward, you can be right here, or you can look back, and all of those directions for attending serve a function, but flexibility in that, right? Another flexibility process is in this idea of thinking, right? So like, what are thoughts? What are they, right? Like, can't find them, slice open your brain, can't find them. And yet we can really hold on to them. The question that you asked me earlier about, is there anything you're holding on to? Yeah, like this belief, right? So what we would call that in ACT terms is I'm fused to this belief that I shouldn't make mistakes. Right. And what's flexible is to be able to hold it and be like, yeah, that belief has informed a lot of my behavior. And when I rigidly hold on to that thought, when I'm fused to that thought, my behavior generally narrows, and I do some pretty silly things. But if I can hold that lightly, I can make a mistake and still be kind to myself. I can see that like, yeah, that old thought, like that thing has been around the sushi belt 1 or 2 times in my life. Like, we don't need to reach for this old crab roll. It can just pass. And so fusion is rigid, and diffusion, like when you can hold your thinking, even your emotions, when you can sort of like hold them gently, that's called diffusion. So that's also a psychological flexibility process, right? So as we're thinking about our mental health, what we really want to lean into is this idea that when we are flexible, whether it's in what we think or how we behave or where we pay attention, and when we know our values, right? Like when you have clear, freely chosen values, generally speaking, our psychological health is much better. And our life is too.
Yes. When you were explaining that about, looking at our feelings, our emotions, what was coming to mind was basically hold and release, like holding that thoughts, holding that emotion, that feeling. And then, like you said, oh, this has been around my sushi belt a lot of time. Just release and let go. And yeah. But I think we need to be, for my, you can correct me if I'm wrong, like very intentional in this process or in this moment when we catch ourselves with those thoughts and those feelings again, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think by and large, nothing happens once in this universe. So there's a good chance that those thoughts and feelings are coming back. If we can allow the feelings to be whatever they are, the feelings are just feelings. They're sort of, in my book, I talk about feelings like my grandma Nancy. She's coming to the party, she's kind of a grifter. She's probably going to steal something, and like she's definitely going to say something that's wildly inappropriate, and people will feel uncomfortable when Grandma Nancy shows up. but she's coming to this party no matter what. And so, we look at our feelings from that stance where it's like, experientially, I can feel really sad and still do things that are important to me. Like the time with my dad in hospice, I was devastated. I was also 9 months pregnant, right? So like, it was devastating. My first daughter was born 2 days after my dad died. And so like that period of my life, I felt everything. There were like many Grandma Nancy's running around my house, just like wreaking havoc. And I could still behave flexibly. I could still go be present with my dad and pay attention to him and like love on him, even though it was just like a house party on the inside, right? So there's flexibility there. And when those thoughts show up, like with the relapse prevention stuff that we've talked about, like I have to know if you hold really tightly to that thought, your behavior is going to narrow and you're probably going to drink or you're probably going to pick up your phone. If you like, I can't tolerate not knowing if my email is, whatever it is, the tighter we hold on to stuff, the more rigid we are, the more unwellness we have. So yeah, it's going to come back up and we can see it for what it is, which is just these like curious private psychological events that are happening inside our meat suit. And like, isn't that interesting and curious? And
Yes.
hold it gently and let it go.
Yes. Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. I mean, well, if I'm able to, be in control or be able to master my feelings about my digital use and I'm able to minimize that to a large extent, is it going to be possible in the long run to be able to increase my creativity in my daily life? Like if I'm able to put my phone down, use it less, don't check my emails every 2 seconds or 5 seconds, will I be able to become more creative?
I think there are some distinctions that are worth making, right? Like we can't control our thoughts or our feelings for the most part, but what we can control is our behavior. And so if you want to be more creative, being more creative is not necessarily the same as feeling more creative, right? Like those are actually different events, right? Like being creative could, like my kids could sit down and like draw something and I'd be like, oh, they're being creative right now. They could play pretend they're being creative right now. They may not feel creative. Someone who is like a professional creative or an artist might look at that and be like, yeah, they're playing. That's not creative. Like they're just like, they're drawing whatever. Like that's not creativity. I don't think that would say that, right? But like, I think if we're looking to increase something that we feel, then we actually have to do a behavior to inspire that, right? So I'm not quite sure who said it. I know it's a famous quote around like, I only write when I feel inspired, and I feel inspired every morning at 9 o'clock when I sit down to write. This idea being that if you want something in your life, you have to do it, and then it becomes a part of your life. So if you want creativity and if you want to feel more creative, you have to do things that are creative in the way that you're defining creativity. And then at some point, you'll start to feel more creative in the same way that if you started going to the gym at the beginning of the year and you had zero motivation, right? Like we are not waking up at 5 a.m. You'll have to do that for a period of time for the pattern to establish, for the habit to really get into your system and for that flow to start to happen before you actually feel motivated to get up and go to the gym. But the feeling often doesn't come before the behavior. And so when it comes to generating feelings, do the behavior first, let go of the expectation that you're going to feel anyway. And then at a certain point in your life, you get to look back and be like, oh man, like I've been doing creative stuff my whole life.
Yeah.
How dope is that? Who cares how you felt on the inside? Like it is dope that you have spent your whole life creating really awesome stuff that you believe in, and how you felt while you did it is actually kind of inconsequential.
Yeah. I think it's all about the doing, right? I mean, you have to get into action. And like I like that you went back to that point of, we have to work on our behaviors. It's all about, the behavior that we create or we have basically helps us to be creative. Yeah. I'm really reflecting on myself basically to know, okay, I have to change some things, some habits, some behaviors to be much more creative and to allow more things into my life. Like if I'm saying less of something, it has to be more of something else that I want in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, what's the saying? Even Beyonce has 24 hours, right? She also has assistants and everything. So like she kind of has more than 24 hours. But I mean, what specifically do you want more of in your life? You said you want more creativity. You'll have to let go of some things that are taking up space. We have to prioritize. So what will you give up in order to have more creative time? And what will you structure in order to have, I mean, I'm genuinely asking you, like, Toby, what are you going to change? What are you going to do differently? Like, how will you behave differently?
Yes, I think I'm going to watch less of Disney Plus or Netflix, for example.
Yeah,
It's going to be painful, but it's something I'm willing to give up.
See, okay. And what are you going to put there instead? Like, what behavior do you want there instead?
I think one behavior I love to pick up is to sit on my tablet with my tablet and write, for example. Like I love writing stories, for example, or reading more actually. Is something I would like to put in. Those two things are those I'm missing or are lacking in my life, and I'm always asking myself, I don't have enough time to read every day. I don't have enough time to write my fiction stories every day. And I love to just sit on the couch when I'm tired and watch something.
Look, as someone who is like currently really excited about Thursday's reveal of Beast games, I get it, right? Like I understand the like sometimes we just need to like, I don't know, go into like hypersleep. And sometimes we get stuck in hypersleep, right? Like that autopilot feature turns on and then we're in Wall-E and then it's like the year, I don't know, 32. And like we've been in hypersleep for years and we're all rolling around drinking slushies and right on
having
seats.
Fun. Yeah,
right, like not fun. But like, okay, so you want more writing in your life. More writing is not clear enough. I need specifics, right? Like, how will I be able to measure that more has happened for you? Are we talking about you sit down, you spend 1 more minute writing? Is that sufficient? Do you want to write 3 words? Is that sufficient? Like, for you, Toby, what do you want to change? What goal?
I would love to write 1 page every day.
Okay.
Well, 1,000 words, I would say, yeah.
Okay, so I love that variation. I'll either write 1 page or 1,000 words. And is the idea that like once you hit that goal, you stop, you use that a marker, or once you hit that, like you can keep going, you can stop. We're not going to like put parameters on it. It's just like we want to go at least 1,000 words or 1 page.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, that's the minimum.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. What time is this going to happen?
So, I mean, if I look at my schedule, it's going to be around 9 p.m. my time. Yeah.
Okay. Is that realistic for you? How does your brain feel at 9 p.m.?
Tired.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So are you setting yourself up for a goal that you can't actually achieve?
Yeah. Now I'm saying it out loud, yes.
Okay. I love this for you. I think this is a thing that we all do, right? We have this like idealized version of how our life should look. And then we're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then we get like frustrated with ourselves for not doing the thing that like we couldn't do, right? Like I have a version of my stomach that is like flat and doesn't have a C-section scar. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. And it's like, fuck you are, Jennie, right? It's cute. We could probably get it a little bit flatter, but like you had 2 humans removed from your abdomen. So like evidence of that is not leaving anytime soon. So for you, it sounds like 9 p.m. is not realistic. Do you actually want this, or is this something that you think you should do?
Yeah, I want it. I really want it, yes.
Okay. What about it do you want? Like, what's in it?
Oh, it's for me personally, is the fulfillment I get from it. So, I mean, I always get in my head a lot of images and videos and, characters that I want to put down on paper or make them digitalized. And they don't seem to leave until I've done that. And so that means I go each day and I'm having this character in my head playing, and I want to really put it down. But I'm like, my mornings are always packed with meetings and all of that. And evening I get back home and I have to do a lot of things. And it's 9 p.m. I think I have the time to do it, basically. And then 9 p.m. comes and I'm like, oh no, I just want to watch something and go to bed.
Yeah. You're toast. Okay. So you're watching things at night at 9. You're going Are you going straight from watching The Ultimatum into, I'm just putting The Ultimatum in there. You might not be watching The Ultimatum, but we didn't either, Toby. Are you going straight from your Netflix or into bed, or are you doing other stuff in between?
Or in between, like getting ready for bed and maybe reading some lines of a book.
Yeah.
And then going to sleep here.
Yeah. Okay. When you are doing Netflix, are you also on your phone?
Mostly on my laptop.
Okay.
Phone,
So you're on your laptop and you're watching. Is Netflix on your laptop or is it on your TV?
It's on the TV.
Okay.
It's on the TV and maybe meals on the laptop or other things. So just minor, minimal tasks basically. Yeah.
Okay. What if we, I love the idea of more writing time. I'm wondering if there's a step in between that, something that's smaller that we could like stack towards writing time. Where, what if we just try to do one thing at a time, either just watch Netflix, right? Or just be like, what are you doing on your laptop? What are you doing on your phone? Like, what is that thing?
Also, it's mostly answering emails, for example, or
You are
checking.
working.
Yeah, I'm working.
You're working.
Yeah.
You're just still working is what I hear. And you have Netflix on in the background. Okay. So what I am wondering is, one, can we hire you a virtual assistant to offload some of this extraordinary work that you have? Just a thought. Love that for you. I can, get you hooked up with whoever, got some connections. Is there a way to offload some of the work that you have so that you actually have a little bit more freedom in your life to be creative?
Yeah, I think, delegating those tasks, or outsourcing them. Yeah, I think that could really create more time for me. True.
Is that possible for you, or is that a pipe dream right now?
No, it's possible for me.
Are you willing to let go of holding on to that task?
I mean, if you had asked me that question earlier, I would say it's very difficult for me to let go of things I love to do myself, like managing my things myself. That'll be my answer. It's very difficult or challenging to let go of, I can write this email better myself. I could do this, organize this better myself. And I can do it when I'm sleeping also better.
Oh my gosh, I get it. And to that point, while you have both your paws just gripping onto email, you can't touch your writing. You don't have any free hands, right? And so like, if you can let go of one, you might actually get to touch the other. So would it be worth it for you? Like, are you willing to take the risk of like letting go of that in order to touch something that is actually really important to you?
Yeah, actually, yes.
Okay.
I think that's the answer. Let's go. Let other people do it. Yeah, just outsource it or something. Yeah, get help.
Do you have help? Do you have an assistant? Do you have?
I mean, I always get like offers for, but I never really pursued them before because I believe I'll do it on my own. I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So if you got an hour of writing time back in your life every day, it would be worth letting go for you. I want you to email me in a week, maybe 2 weeks, once you have hired somebody or started the hiring process. Are you going to go through a temp agency? Like what's the step here? What does that look like? You said people will reach out to you to do EA work, but like what's your small action step here?
It would be actually to, maybe reply to the emails in a much more positive way, or encouraging way, basically. Like, okay, yeah, let's look into that. Like, mostly I just get the emails and I'm like, sorry, at the moment, no, not needed.
Not a chance.
A chance, but maybe encouraging it and asking to have a interview or something and talk to see if we align. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like your step that you're identifying you want to take is to allow people to come to you about assistant work instead of you going out and like finding a temp agency and them.
I could also check on other websites. Yeah, like Fiverr, for example, and other platforms. Yeah.
Do you want to interview people? Like, does that seem like?
If I don't have to, I would love to not do it.
Look, there's agencies that'll match you, right? Like you fill out a bunch of stuff and then they match you. And if it's a bad match, they'll match you with somebody else and you don't have to do the whole interview process. They just plug somebody in. Like, is that something that's more appealing to you?
Oh, that's better for me. It saves me a lot of time. Yeah, that was similar to
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we're not actually going to be like passive in this step. It sounds like your action step is actually to look into what?
Into getting an agent that could match me with somebody that will be a
Mm-hmm.
perfect fit as a virtual assistant for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I love this. I love this. Which will get you what?
Which will
Like,
get
what are
me,
you actually going toward?
I'm going towards having more time for myself to write and to
Mm.
maybe, yeah, do more research, work for myself, read more. Yeah, do that.
Isn't it amazing that like hiring an assistant actually aligns with you giving yourself more creative time?
Yeah, it does.
Like, that's actually what you're doing here. It's not delegating work or it's like actually about creativity. I think that's
True.
so cool.
That's
I think
cool.
that's so
Yeah.
cool. And something that we probably wouldn't have gotten to if we had all of this content just like barraging us all the time about how we should just be more productive and how you should be everything for everyone all the time.
Yeah. But that's why I'm happy we're talking about this because sometimes when I read things online, it's always about, being much more productive. Yeah, much more productive, much more efficient. So I always tell myself,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if I'm able to manage everything properly, I'll be able to squeeze in everything to my 24 hours because Beyonce also has only 24 hours a day and she's able to do all she has to do without,
Mm-hmm.
never always forgetting that, oh, she has the same behind her basically. But like, I can do it. I can, do this, entertain myself and also answer my emails at the same time. So that way I feel like I've checked all the boxes, but then you notice, okay, there's some boxes that are always left unchecked. And yeah, maybe very vital boxes to check.
I love your next step. I love more creative time for you. I love less phone and screen time that just masks what it is that you really want, which is creative time.
Yes. I mean, if you have some recommendations, you could send them over to me. I will check. I would love to check maybe
Yeah,
agents.
for
Yeah,
sure.
please.
For
Please,
sure. Yeah,
I'll
you
be
bet.
looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you
I
so
got
much.
an agency. They're great.
Really. Oh, please connect me with them, please.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yes. Yeah. So I have one more question towards you on your book. I think we've gone into my personal self. But I really love to ask this question before we wrap up the conversation. It has been so delightful speaking with you, Jenny. I mean, I can't explain how much I'm happy right now to have this conversation with you. It feels like this conversation is just basically for me and not for anybody, no listener out there. It's just personal for me.
It's good for me too, Toby. We're good.
Your book presents a 30-day challenge to help readers reset their digital habits. And wow, it's very important to me because I sometimes, from time to time, always have that belief that I have to reset myself, my usage of different things, basically. So how does this challenge unfold and what are the key rules everyone should follow when doing this?
Yeah. So the challenge unfolds a lot like what we just did together, right? So it's all based around us clarifying your values, around us identifying how you actually want to spend these precious moments of your life. Because, like my dad, they will come to an end before we know it. And it's about identifying some of the beliefs that we're holding on to that are keeping us stuck. Like this belief, like, oh, I really enjoy and have to control my emails. Someone else can manage that for me, right? I can hold that loose. And it's about tolerating the discomfort of making those changes. Is it going to be uncomfortable to start to have somebody else take over some of your email communications? Yeah, for sure. And is it going to be worth it? Yeah, for sure. It's going to take a little time, right? And so the whole book is based around the work that you and I just did. If you're listening to this, or Toby, if you're like, yeah, actually, that was like really helpful and rewarding, like the book is just a series of that, right? So we clarify your values, figure out your stuck points, and then we start to shape your life into what you want it to be. The rules for doing the challenge change day by day, and there aren't rigid rules, right? Like I would love to be like, it's 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day is that's the rule for a happy phone life, but it's really not. The rules are the things that you make up for your life. How do you want to spend your life? Do you want to spend it on your phone? Do you want to have your attention consistently split between like Netflix and your laptop and your social media? My guess is no, right? Like my guess is you would rather be writing or creating or doing something that like is really spending time with your kids. And so the books helps you gradually reduce your phone use and reshape the way that those hours that you're getting back are now spent.
Oh yeah, that's and it's very vital. Like when you did example with me, we gain those hours and using them for other things that helps you to be creative, yeah, it's very vital and very invaluable. I'll say, I mean, very, very, you can't put a price tag on it, on the hours you get back for yourself. Yeah, that's true. So I'll just like to get your professional advice on this for a listener out there who could be right now, experiencing anxiety and you're saying, "Oh, I'm so anxious, I can't even think about my digital use right now. I mean, it's not an issue for me." What would be your advice to them to get out of that anxiety state or anxious state?
I mean, if you are so anxious right now that you're like, I can't even attend to that. I just have I'm riddled with anxiety. Maybe it's time to reach out to a therapist. There are evidence-based ways to help you work through whatever it is that you're anxious about. And if your body is alight with that sort of fire, it's trying to tell you something. And maybe listening to it can be a little bit of a release. And so if you're wanting professional support, I happen to know someone who runs an anxiety clinic. It's me. I run an anxiety clinic. You're welcome to hit us up. And we're happy to see if we serve you wherever you live. We have clinicians who are licensed in a bunch of different states. So you can holler at us at the West Coast Anxiety Clinic. And like I said, we'll see what we can do. And there are also a lot of other really great resources out there. For example, if you're struggling with intrusive thoughts, check out the IOCDF. It's the International OCD Foundation. They have a lot of great resources. If you're just having trouble paying attention to right now, get on one of the mindfulness apps. Start to use Calm. See if that is something that helps you become more flexible in where you're paying attention. But know that if you are really suffering with anxiety, it's a clinical disorder. There are clinical anxiety disorders. Anxiety is a normal human phenomena, first of all, right? Like if you're anxious, you're a human. Great. Your prefrontal cortex works. Chef's kiss. We love that for you, right? But if it is impairing your life, reach out. Don't try to do it alone. You don't have to. We're just not in the 50s anymore, right? Like, come on to 2025 and get yourself some help and we'll be here for you.
Yeah, no one's going to judge you or throw stones at you. Yeah, Jenny's
Not more than you're judging yourself.
Yeah, that's true. So for people out there who would like to get the book, look up and start that challenge right now, and also maybe seek for your help. What's the best way to connect with you, to work with you, to get the book?
Yeah, you bet. So if you want to get the book right now, it's available on Amazon. Look up The 30-Day Path to Digital Minimalism and Real Life Maximalism, or you can just look up Jennie Ketchum. It'll come up. You don't even have to type my full name. If you want to start therapy, reach out to the West Coast Anxiety Clinic. We'll help you out. And if you want to follow me on the socials, I do some things on socials. I recognize there's tension there given the title of the book, but this is the world we live in, people. Okay. So you can follow me at Becoming Jennie.
Jennie. The link to your website will be in the show notes of the episode, and I encourage everyone to follow you and, click on the link. Read more about you also on your website. Thank you so much, Jennie. I really appreciate, speaking with you. I learned so much from you. I started from the wild card questions that I did not choose before and led to this wonderful conversation. And you also helping me to answer questions that should have been obvious to me, but without speaking them out, you don't get to the bottom of it. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought-provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.